Caller, you're on the air.
Hi, first time, long time. I just want to go on a completely unasked for or solicited rant about the city of Los Angeles. It's the worst city on the planet. I hate it. The traffic, I could fucking drive from Davie, Florida to Orlando in the time that it will take me to drive 20 fucking miles to where the Joke Production Studios. It's now going to fucking make this show late. And really, it's not even for anything. It's not like I've seen a wreck or something. There's too many fucking people, and they're all terrible. They're fucking horrible people. All of them. I hate them all. Fuck them. God damn it.
I want to tell you why I am an hour and a half late. Goddamn rain! That's why we had to go so goddamn slow. Was because there's frigging rain in Southern California, and apparently people can't handle it. When it rains like that, people just decide to go 15 miles.
There's a bunch of hoop jumping niggers bouncing all around. I'm glad I can't see them. That dang penises popping out their shorts. Knees shiny with their Negro lotions. They make me sick. They stink.
Estimates about the use, but there have been previous reports by Glenn Greenwald, Laura Poitras, and other people about implants. Now, we understand implant has a dual meaning. It can be a software implant or a hardware implant. So now the question to the NSA is, of all the machines you've compromised around the world, which is somewhere between 50,000 and a lot more, how many of those includes implants into the BIOS, into the firmware, into the hardware? We don't have any numbers about how often they tamper with American company shipments, for example, or if those companies are in fact complicit with those shipments. Those are numbers we'd like to see released by the NSA. We'd like to see some information about that. But we do know that the number is not 1 or 10. We know that it's in the tens of thousands, probably in the hundreds of thousands, but at least, as has been reported, as 50,000 at some point in the recent past. Do you have a question?
So when talking about impersonating Yahoo, you said with deploying TLS everywhere, basically encrypting everything, you might stop some of these attacks in impersonating. And my question is it not sufficient to have one of the CA root certificates, of which are more than 50, many of which are American companies, to man in the middle any of that? So I mean, how does encryption everywhere really make us safe against that?
So the points that I made earlier, this is a very technical point, so for all the journalists that are already lost in the room, I'll sort of re-explain it. He's asking about quantum insertion. Quantum insertion is a man-on-the-side capability. This is notably different than a man in the middle, because we're talking about where on the network path the attacker is, right? So in this case, if you're directly connecting through the attacker, of course, they can do a man-in-the-middle attack. If they have a certificate of authority, which I'm sure someday we might learn about something like that, that is very different, that type of attack. But a man-on-the-side attack, they actually have to attack TCP IP, TCP specifically, and they have to pull something out, that is the sequence number, and then they need to race the packet and inject. And actually, I believe they set the fin, ACK, urge flags on the packet. So you can actually see, you'll get 2 fin packets or 2 ACK packets, one with a fin flag. The fin flag packet is the NSA packet. That will also include data. The data that is included in the case of a web service will probably be some JavaScript or an iframe or something like that. Now, if that was a TLS session and they injected a packet, they would need to inject at the right time, and they would need to extract a lot more information. And I suspect, but I don't know for sure, that the next record from the actual server would tamper with that TLS connection, and it would actually cause problems. So an SSL man-in-the-middle attack is more suited for a full on-path man-in-the-middle, whereas the quantum insertion is perfect for unencrypted things where you merely need to observe one thing and beat it in a race condition. And in the slides that we released, we very clearly show that they don't always win. In fact, we released some statistics where they show that if they're far away from the target, then they're not able to whack the target. So it's important to understand that when you deploy TLS, you change the fundamental nature of the way that they're attacking people. Obviously, there are other problems with those kinds of solutions. The certificate authority world is a disaster. And that doesn't solve that problem, but it will solve the man-on-the-side problem, without question.
With their attacks, does these attacks weaken the whole system, not only for one intruder, but maybe for many other intruders? Or what's the big picture?
Yeah, so the big picture is that the NSA has left all of us vulnerable. They understand how to exploit these vulnerabilities. They do, and as a result, everyone else can too. In many cases, especially things like with a man-on-the-side injection, that's a well-known thing. There are actually implementations of quantum insertion on GitHub, which have been written in response to this. Now, that's not the NSA's implementation of quantum insertion, but the point is that there are people who have implemented the same attack, and they just don't have the same infrastructure. And so this is an obvious problem, which the NSA has left us vulnerable to. And in some ways, this is not the news part. The news part is the scale in which they do it, and the understanding of the total control that it gives to them. And thus, they acknowledge that this is also something that another attacker with a great deal of infrastructure would be able to do, and it would also give them a great deal of power. So I would say that the right thing to do here is to fix it so that that other attacker is not able to do this. But instead, the NSA has decided to keep their power and to use this power. And I don't believe they use this power responsibly.
All right, now we're going to take questions. I would ask that you please not give speeches and just give questions. Go ahead. Please identify yourself when you ask the question.
Yes, hello. My name is Daniel Leusink. I'm a freelance correspondent with the Dutch financial daily at Financiële Dagblad. I've been based in Japan for 6 years. My question is for Mr. Jasko. You may have been asked this before, but what do you think of the way former Prime Minister Naoto Kan got the nuclear accident, under control? And to what extent do you think he was a hero?
I think I've had an opportunity to meet with Mr. Khan after the accident, and I think he took a lot of very significant actions during the crisis. I think people who work in government, it's their job to take the right actions in a crisis. I don't think that makes you a hero. I think that's your job. And I think he did a lot of things right. When you have a crisis like what happened in Japan, it's a very, very difficult situation. You're faced with tremendous uncertainty. And the more I think I hear about what he did, I think the more people in Japan will value the leadership that he demonstrated. Because there were a number of very significant crises that he managed. It was not only the nuclear accident, but it was responding to the humanitarian crisis of a tsunami that had devastated a region in Japan. So I think the more that people know and learn about what he did, the more that they'll think he did a fine job in reacting to the accident. I'm not one to label people's actions, but I think he dealt with a lot of challenges, in particular getting information from TEPCO and kind of breaking through. Well, I think the term that's been used here is the nuclear village. And he had to break that down, and once he did, and he established some very good methods then for information sharing. He put Minister Hosono in charge of kind of dealing with the immediate accident response, and I think that was a tremendous leadership decision on his part, and it really put in place a formula and a mechanism for information sharing, for decision making, that ultimately brought the situation under control. So I'm really very impressed with what he did and how he responded in a very difficult crisis.
Next.
Rudolf ten Hoed, European Energy Review. Mr. Jasko, if I heard you well, you're not talking about outphasing nuclear energy. You see possibilities on the midterm range to continue nuclear energy here in Japan, and under what condition do you see those conditions in place to make that happen in a responsible way?
Well, I think ultimately, if I look, maybe I'll start at the long range and work back. I would say, 100 years from now, I would certainly like to see a Japan that doesn't have to deal with nuclear energy challenges. I think given the nature of the country, this is a technology that poses significant risks. And unless we develop a new generation of technologies for nuclear energy that kind of meet this standard that I've talked about, which is the elimination, not just the reduction in the risk.
Boy, you really have to climb a lot of steps to get to this Capitol building in Washington, D.C. Say, what's that piece of paper doing here?
Oh, you mean me? I tell you who I am. I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill. And I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill. But I know I'll be a law someday. At least I hope and pray that I will. But today I am still just a bill.
Cool. What kind of bill are you?
Why, I'm an immigration bill. And one day the Republicans might create me so I could become a law.
And how does a bill become a law?
Funny you should ask. Well, first I go to the House and they vote on me. But then I need from the Senate a majority. And if I pass the legislative test, then I wind up on the president's desk. And I say, my sweet, what y'all whipping? My legs. They were made of paper.
President Obama, what's the big idea? That bill was trying to become a law.
I realize that. But you know, son, there's actually an even easier way to get things done around here. It's called an executive order.
I'm an executive order, and I pretty much just happened. And that's it.
Wait a second, don't you have to go through Congress at some point?
Oh, that's adorable. You still think that's how government works.
Don't listen to him, son. Look at the midterm elections. People clearly don't want this. Oh, you black ass! Why did I come back? I think I landed on my keys.
Mr. President, is this constitutional?
Of course. Presidents issue executive orders all the time.
That's right. I could do lots of things. I'll create a national park or a new holiday.
Or grant legal status to 5 million undocumented immigrants.
Wait, what?
Yep, that's what you're gonna do.
Oh my God, well, I didn't have time to read myself. Whoa! Okay, go big or go home, huh?
This isn't over. We're gonna take you to court. We're gonna shut down all the college. So many steps. So many steps.
Well, son, what do you think about the government now?
I think I want to go into the private sector.
Me too, son. Me too. One more thing.
Live from New York